We are now into the month of February, and as the college basketball season continues to move along, it's time for my updated top 25 rankings. So in today's video, I'll be going from number 1 to number 25 on who is the top teams in all of the sport. But before we get into the rankings, if you enjoy the content, please consider dropping a like on the video and subscribing to the channel. And now, let's jump into it. And coming in at my number 1 spot, it has to be Arizona, who remains the clear number 1 in the country at 22-0 so far this season, and they stand as the only unbeaten power conference team left. Their non-conference resume against Alabama, UConn, and Florida set the tone early on in the year, and then Big 12 play has only strengthened their case as the number 1 team. This week, the Wildcats passed a major road test at BYU before sweeping Arizona State to stay perfect on the season, and Arizona's offense continues to hum, frequently topping 80 points in each game, and this physical, versatile lineup consistently finds ways to close games, and with conference play only intensifying, Arizona looks fully capable of maintaining this pace and entering March as the team everyone is chasing. And right behind the Wildcats at number 2, I have the UConn Huskies, who continue to look every bit like a national title contender at 21-1 on the year, and they remain unbeaten in Big East play, and their only loss on the season is to Arizona. And the Huskies, though, handled another tough week this past week, fending off Providence before dominating Creighton on the road, and they continue to get contributions to come from every corner of their rotation, which gives Dan Hurley one of the most complete starting lineups in the entire country. And while some shooting inconsistencies still pop up, UConn's balance and defensive presence night in and night out separate them from the pack to me, and with the Big East largely under control, the Huskies appear poised to cruise toward March as a heavy favorite once again. At number 3, I have the Duke Blue Devils, who have firmly established themselves as the class of the ACC, as they sit 20-1 on the year with a dominant league start as they are unbeaten in conference play so far, and this week only reinforced that standing as the Blue Devils rolled past Louisville before securing another road win at Virginia Tech, and their lone loss came by a single point over a month ago to Texas Tech, and since then, Duke has consistently overwhelmed their opponents. Cameron Boozer anchors a roster that looks both deep and disciplined, and he's been playing like the best player in the country so far, and the Blue Devils now sit comfortably atop the ACC, and with tougher matchups still ahead though, Duke looks built for sustained success and a deep postseason run. Next, at the number 4 spot, I have the Michigan Wolverines, who continue to look like one of the most physically imposing teams in the country and are 20-1 on the season as well. And after an early season stumble against Wisconsin a few weeks ago, which gave them their first and only loss of the season so far, the Wolverines responded with another one of their strongest stretches yet. This week featured a massive home win over unbeaten Nebraska at the time, and they followed that up with a road victory against their rival Michigan State, which gives them 2 top 10 wins in my rankings. And Michigan's ability to dominate quality opponents on both ends has them back atop the Big Ten standings at 10-1, and this roster doesn't just compete, it overwhelms teams at most of the time, and if this level holds, Michigan has the profile of a legitimate Final Four contender to me. And right behind the Wolverines at number 5, I have the Gonzaga Bulldogs, who are 22-1 on the year, with their only loss coming to Michigan earlier on in the season, and their record tells a fascinating story, which combines elite wins with one glaring blemish, which was that loss to Michigan. And outside of that loss, the Bulldogs have handled business time and time again, including another key week in WCC play this past week. Their win over St. Mary's showcased toughness and execution in a high-level conference battle, which they don't normally get. And Graham Ike continues to lead this balanced and experienced lineup, which is supported by strong contributions from Braden Huff and Tyon Grant Foster and others. And Gonzaga's offense remains reliable, and while league play won't always challenge them, this team looks well equipped to translate its efficiency into success in March. Coming in at the number 6 spot, I have the Houston Cougars, who rebounded in impressive fashion this week after suffering their first Big 12 loss. Road wins at TCU, followed by a dominant home performance against Cincinnati, reminded everyone why the Cougars remain one of the league's favorites to win in the Big 12. Kelvin Sampson's group continues to rely on defense and physicality, and even if it doesn't quite resemble last year's title game squad, they still are one of the best teams in the country, and now they sit at 7-1 in conference play and remain firmly in the national picture, and with key freshmen continuing to grow, like Kingston Flemings, who has absolutely taken over and looks like one of, if not not the best point guard in all of college basketball right now, the Cougars look capable of regaining elite form and making serious noise when the stakes rise. But next at number 7, I have one of the hottest teams in the country, and that's the Illinois Fighting Illini, who are winners of 10 straight and are now 9-1 in Big Ten play, and this week brought another pair of impressive wins, including a huge road victory over Nebraska and continuing a surge fueled by elite offensive efficiency from the Illini. And even without their starting point guard Kylan Boswell, Illinois hasn't slowed down, and that's largely due to the emergence we've seen from freshman Keaton Wagler, who is skyrocketing up NBA draft boards because of his play as of late. And they lead the nation in offensive efficiency, and the Illinois consistently find answers late in games. And if this balance holds like I think it will, Illinois is shaping up as a serious threat well beyond conference play. Iowa State finds themselves at number 8 in my rankings, and after a rough patch earlier this month by the Cyclones, they have firmly steadied the ship and now sit at 20-2 on the year. And Iowa State rattled off 4 straight double-digit wins since their last loss, including dominant performances against Colorado and Kansas State this past week. And although their defense had briefly slipped, their recent results suggest that identity is returning, and TJ Altenberger continues to guide a roster capable of playing deep into March, especially if the defensive intensity remains consistent and the offense comes back to what we saw earlier in the season. And with Joshua Jefferson, Milan Mochilovic, and Taman Lipsey leading the charge for the Cyclones, Iowa State looks ready to reassert itself as one of the Big 12's most dangerous teams and one of the best teams in the country. Coming in at the number 9 spot is Nebraska, whose historic start finally met some resistance this past week, but that shouldn't overshadow what's been an incredible season. After opening the year at 20-0, the Cornhuskers have dropped back-to-back games against Michigan and Illinois, while missing some key contributors in those games like Rinkmast and Braden Frager, who weren't able to go against the Wolverines. But even with those losses, Nebraska's chemistry and offensive execution remains impressive, and now they sit at 20-2 on the year, and this team has already redefined expectations for this program and looks like they might win their first ever March Madness game this season. But the challenge now will be responding to that adversity. But if the Cornhuskers stabilize defensively and regain their full strength, they still have every chance to remain a factor in the Big Ten race and beyond. And rounding out the top 10 at number 10, I have the Michigan State Spartans, who experienced a mixed week that highlighted both its strengths and its vulnerabilities. The Spartans survived a gritty overtime road win at Rutgers before falling to their rival Michigan at home and struggled badly from three-point range in that one. But despite the setback, Tom Izzo's squad remains 19-3 and is well positioned nationally, and this team has shown it can win in multiple ways, leaning on defense or offensive efficiency at times depending on the night, and one rough shooting performance doesn't erase the weeks of dominance that we've seen from the Spartans. And hopefully with consistency returning, Michigan State remains a team no one will want to see in March. Vanderbilt comes in at number 11, and their season continues to be defined by resilience, and after that 3-game skid that threatened to derail momentum for the Commodores, they responded with 2 solid wins this week, including an impressive performance against Kentucky. And Tyler Tanner continues to drive this offense and looks like one of the SEC's most impactful guards right now. And at 19-3 on the year, Vanderbilt's resume still stacks up well, and recent play suggests they're finding their rhythm once again. And if this upward trend continues, the Commodores should remain firmly in the SEC race and enter postseason play as a dangerous matchup for just about anyone. Bill Self and the Kansas Jayhawks moved up to number 12 in my rankings and took advantage of a critical opportunity this week, knocking off BYU behind one of their most efficient offensive performances we've seen this season. They shot 57% from the field and 50% from the deep in that game, and the Jayhawks reminded everyone of their season. Darren Peterson continues to headline this group, though I still have some injury concerns that will be a lingering storyline for them, as he sat out for a majority of the second half of that BYU game. But now the Jayhawks are sitting at 16-5, and Kansas still has ground to make up in a loaded Big 12, but if health cooperates and offensive consistency continues to improve like it has been, the Jayhawks have the talent to climb back into the national title conversation quickly. Purdue comes in at my number 13 spot, and the Boilermakers season has taken a sudden downturn, and this week did little to stop that slide. They had a road loss at rival Indiana, which marked their 3rd straight defeat, dropping the Boilermakers even further down the Big Ten standings and in my rankings. And despite an elite offense capable of overwhelming opponents opponents, their defensive breakdowns have plagued them in recent weeks. Purdue has allowed too many open looks and is failing to close games, which has undone otherwise strong performances that we've seen from them earlier in the year. And now they're 18-4, and they still own quality wins, but defensive urgency must return soon to avoid continued slippage heading into March. Texas Tech comes in at my number 14 spot, and their recent surge hit a bump this week, but the body of work that they have remains impressive to me. After wins over Duke, BYU, and Houston, the Red Raiders somehow fell on the road at UCF, which exposed some defensive vulnerabilities that we've seen earlier in the year. But even with their strong interior scoring efficiency, those defensive lapses proved costly for the Red Raiders, and JT Toppin and Christian Anderson continue to anchor this roster and is capable of competing with nearly anyone as we've seen. And at full strength, Texas Tech remains dangerous, but tightening up on the defensive end will be crucial if they want to sustain their rise in the Big 12 race. AJ Dubasa and BYU is my number 15 team, and the Cougars ran into a brutal stretch this week, facing two of the nation's elite teams in quick succession, and they took losses at home to Arizona and on the road at Kansas, which dropped the Cougars to 17-4 on the season and exposed defensive concerns of their own and once again slow starts to games. But despite those setbacks, I still think BYU boasts a strong lineup and has shown the ability to compete with top-tier opponents, and how they respond to this adversity will define their season. But if the defense stabilizes and they can get rid of those slow starts that we see time and time again from them, BYU still remains well positioned to rebound and stay firmly in the Big 12 conversation, and I do think they have the talent to make it to a Final Four this year. North Carolina finds themselves at number 16 in my rankings and continue to flash high potential while wrestling with some consistency issues. This week's road win at Georgia Tech helped steady things after earlier ACC struggles, and Caleb Wilson and Henry Vasar continue to shoulder most of the load for the Tar Heels, but defensive metrics remain a concern for them. Now they're 17-4 as well, and the Tar Heels have proven they can beat elite competition, yet questions linger about their depth and reliability, specifically in the backcourt for me. But improvements on the defensive end come and secondary options emerge outside of Wilson and Vasar, North Carolina still has a path to make meaningful noise in March. Coming in at number 17 is Virginia, who continues its steady rise under Ryan Odom in his first year, as they're sitting at 18-3 and are firmly in the mix in the ACC. The Cavaliers showcased resilience this week with comeback road wins at Notre Dame and Boston College and extend their league road streak to 5 straight wins. And while defensive consistency has wavered at times for the Cavaliers, Virginia's ability to grind out wins stands out to me. And now they're 7-2 in conference play, and the Cavaliers are positioning themselves as a real threat in the ACC. And if that defensive execution continues to improve, Virginia could play a major role in shaping the ACC race down the stretch. Next, at number 18 is where I have the Florida Gators, who delivered one of the most eye-catching results of the week with their massive 40-plus point road win at South Carolina. And that bounce-back performance followed what was a tough loss to Auburn earlier and capped a stretch of improved play that we've seen from the Gators. And now they're sitting at 16-6, and Florida is still navigating those backcourt growing pains, but Xavier Lee and Boogie Flan have continued to look better and better as the season goes on, and Urban Clavzar has been huge for them off the bench in the backcourt as well, and the momentum is clearly trending upward, and Todd Golden's group remains capable of swinging the SEC race on any given night. And if the consistency continues to build, Florida has the tools to remain competitive and dangerous, not only in conference but in March. And I truly believe that this Florida team has the potential to make it back to the Final Four and could win another national championship. Arkansas comes in at the number 19 spot, and they experience another uneven week where they split games while showing both promise and frustration, which seems to be what we've seen a lot from the Razorbacks in this roller coaster of a season so far. They had a road win at Oklahoma, which highlighted the upside that we've seen, but that home loss to Kentucky exposed some lingering shooting and defensive issues that the Razorbacks have. But they're still 16-6 and 6-3 in the SEC, which has been solid so far, and the Razorbacks remain firmly in the mix thanks to those earlier marquee wins that they have. And this young roster continues to search for consistency consistency, particularly on the defensive end. But when you have guys like Darius Acuff Jr. and Malik Thomas, that offense can catch fire at any point. But if they continue to find their rhythm, this team still has the talent to surge late in the season once again. And rounding out the top 20 at the number 20 spot is where I have the St. Louis Billikens, who continue to dominate the Atlantic 10 Conference as they improved to 21-1 on the year with 15 straight wins right now. And this week tested them early before a strong finish, including a comeback win against George Washington before that blowout victory over Dayton that they have. And this Billikens offense has been electric and remained perfect in conference play at 9-0. And while the schedule hasn't been brutal, St. Louis keeps answering questions when they are challenged. And with Robbie Avila leading the way for the Billikens, Josh Schertz's group looks poised to enter March as one of the most dangerous mid-majors in the entire country. Louisville finds themselves at number 21 in my rankings after enduring another challenging week where they fell to Duke before bouncing back with a statement win later in the week. And at 15-6, the Cardinals continue to show flashes of competitiveness against top competition, even if the consistency remains elusive for them. And this team has struggled to string together momentum, but resilience has kept them afloat in league play. And with opportunities ahead and Michael Brown Jr. finally back from injury, Louisville's ability to respond to elite opponents will dictate whether they climb further or remain on the fringe of the national picture moving forward. Coming in at number 22 is St. John's, who has quietly regained momentum and is riding a 7-game winning streak and is now sitting at 16-5 overall on the season. And this week's dominant win over Butler only extended that run and pushed them to 9-1 in Big East play. And the defense and shooting have been inconsistent at times for the Red Storms, but recent results suggest improved rhythm on both of those fronts. And they have road wins at Creighton and Villanova, which still stand out, and have an upcoming matchup with UConn, which looms large and will give them another opportunity for a big win. And how the Red Storm perform in that showdown could determine whether they re-enter in the national contender conversation or continue to live around the back end of the top 25. Next at number 23, I have the Tennessee Volunteers, whose season has been a roller coaster, but recent momentum is undeniable for them. The Volunteers followed last week's road win at Alabama with 2 more victories, including an overtime win at Georgia and a strong showing against Auburn. And now they sit at 15-6 on the year and 5-3 in SEC play, and continue to rely on the offseason additions of Nate Ament and Jacoby Gillespie, who has helped them tremendously so far this season. And while inconsistency has defined stretches of the season for the Volunteers, they are clearly trending upward at this time, and if this momentum holds, Tennessee could become a difficult out down the stretch for just about anyone. And coming in at the number 24 spot is where I have Miami, Ohio, who continues its historic run as they remain undefeated at 22-0 and own the longest win streak in MAC history. And last week, they had wins over Massachusetts and Northern Illinois, which extended that streak. And this balanced roster continues to impress. 6 players on the RedHawks are averaging double figures, which highlight an offense that ranks among the nation's best in effective field goal percentage. And while the schedule hasn't been brutal, the results speak for themselves. And until a loss comes, Miami, Ohio is fully deserving of its top 25 spot and remains one of the season's best stories so far. In rounding out the top 25 at the number 25 spot, I have Texas A&M jumping into the rankings, and their rise under Bucky McMillan has been one of the season's biggest surprises to me. At 17-4 on the year, the Aggies capped January with a road win at Georgia and currently sit atop the SEC at 7-1. And after early stumbles, the offense has made a dramatic turnaround, backed by impressive road wins at Auburn and Texas. And consistency has fueled this surge for sure, and their confidence seems to continue to build. And if this level of play holds for the Aggies, Texas A&M looks capable of sustaining its place in the SEC race moving forward. But as always, I want to go over some of the teams that are just out on the outside of my top 25 rankings, but could be included here soon, and they are Clemson, Alabama, Kentucky, UCF, and Auburn. And here's a complete list of how my rankings look heading into the next week of college basketball. But that wraps it up for today's video. Let me know your thoughts on my top 25 rankings in the comments down below. Was there a team that was way too high or way too low, or was there a team that I didn't even include that should have been? Also, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.